and $2.50. Kindly make sure to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, make sure to rate, leave a comment. Both apps are free. And one more thing, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. And without further ado, let's roll. Hey everybody, it's the Sports Den. How you doing? Brandon, your Rangers suck.
Well, you know what? Take your deviled tail and shove it up your ass.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. It's so good to
Oh
see
my God,
hockey
this is so big right here.
at its most hockey-ish. Like what, goons and fights? No, that's not what that sport's about. No, not at all.
Oh yeah. This is arguably one of the biggest rivalries in all of hockey, if not all of sports. A rivalry that honestly is so vindictive that the teams themselves have literally actually started fighting from the opening face-off. This is actually a picture from a bunch of years ago, about 10 years ago, where literally the opening puck drop in the first seconds led to a complete brawl that led to blood, penalties, and suspensions. And this is going to be something...
I don't see that happening this time go around, but
I was
those are the days.
If I recall that incident, and hockey is definitely not one of my high points of knowledge. It was towards the end of the season, and both teams were actually already eliminated by this point. Right. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. There is a long history going back decades. Probably the 93-94 season really being the really massive starting point of that. The Game 7 finals, Stefan Matteau scoring and breaking the hearts of all Devils fans. I remember I was a teenager at the time. It crushed me. And then, of course, Adam Henrique about 10 years ago scoring in overtime in Game 6 that sent the Devils to the Eastern Conference Finals, beating the Rangers in the process. So this is a battle of, how do we put this? Basically the lowly stepbrother and, the one that everybody thinks highly of.
I would not necessarily qualify Devils and Rangers in that manner anymore. I think there was a time, but I think after the Devils have won a few more championships than the Rangers and have moved themselves into
they have
the North Jersey sports New York area sports pantheon quite well. But I will say you have teams that are located very close to each other. You have teams that are in the same division, and when they meet in the playoffs, a lot of times it matters, right? This is the exact opposite of the Phillies and the Mets, where they're close to each other, but it never matters. These teams do meet in important playoff series enough. They were still chanting. I believe they were still chanting 1940 in that 1993 series, yes. And that was the end of the 1940s chant.
And then basically they started with 1994 because it's been almost 30 years there.
Yeah, no, and I recall that series. I was probably the peak of my hockey fandom as I was there. I was just that right age. Lots of Devils fans around me. I was a Devils fan. So, but you're right. There was a ton of Ranger fans around us. It was a very mixed bag, just like Mets, Yankees in the area. So certainly a very strong rivalry. And like I said, one of quite close to each other, physically close to each other. The fans every day, you go to work in one of those areas, you could have a rival on public transportation right next to you.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to make this absolutely wild. Early predictions on several fronts are giving the Rangers the advantage. I will also counter that by saying that these are the same pundits who said the Devils are going to miss the playoffs this year. So keep that in the back of your mind. I think out of fairness, well, that's okay. Listen, it's okay. I'm not
right there.
Yeah, but that wasn't. I said that not in the same kind of.
I'm talking like Pierre LeBrun. I'm talking like hockey analysts. The people that are paid for this. They're like, if the Devils are lucky if they actually backdoor to the postseason. Meanwhile, they have the third best record in the league this year with one of the youngest teams in hockey. So, Brandon, I'm going to give you a few minutes. I think we're probably best to maybe run with, and tell me if you want to do something different. but something along the lines of, pardon the interruption, where I'm just going to let you roll, say what's on your mind, and I'm not going to say a thing. Does that work for you?
No, that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, no. I think first off, this series not only is great for our area in terms of hockey being relevant and really on top of New York, I think it's good for the sport. I think hockey is better when these two teams are consistently better and making deep playoff runs. And it sucks though, because you would almost want this matchup later in the playoff bracket, right? Even the second round, obviously conference finals. So it kind of sucks in the first round that regardless of the losing or regardless of the winning team, a really good team is going home. So one of the advantages that kind of both teams share in this is the travel, or I should say lack thereof. I mean, really, as opposed to all the other playoff matchups, there really is. I mean, that's not traveling. Going from one side of the river to another. If you want to call that traveling, then I don't know what your metrics of distance are, but I mean, I think that's going to be great. Both of these teams are going to be fresh and energized going into each game. I think there's, except for I think the gap between games, I think it's 5 and 6. I think it's 3 days, but if you got the 2 days with the 2-2 or the 2-2-1-1-1 playoff, I think it is, right. So it's going to be very good for that. But I think the Devils have kind of taken the mantle of what the Rangers were last year, where the inexperienced team, right, has made a playoff run or made the playoff appearance, hoping to go on a run. But I think they're trying to emulate what the Rangers have done and what they're trying to do again this year, where you have that young team that you had spent draft picks, you spent trade, free agency to acquire a core of talent, and the Devils are extremely young. So I think it's kind of the same inexperience, or the you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's going to be great for them. I think they're going to go into the series thinking that they can beat the Rangers for sure, and think that they're the better team. And I'm not so sure that they aren't as decked out in Rangers as I am. But I think it's going to be fantastic. I like the Rangers as the experienced team now, coming off a conference final appearance last year. But I think this is going to be a hard-fought battle. I don't think it's going to be these puck drops, fights right from the get-go. I think both teams are going to go into this series, business first. Of course, you're going to get the natural intensity that this rivalry brings out on both sides. But I still think these teams are going to kind of keep this pretty professional in that sense. But playoff hockey is 3 times, 4, 5, 10 times different than what regular season hockey is. And I've been very excited for Rangers playoff runs in the past, but this one, to start off with the Devils and to have this with you, Scott, it is really quite a coming out of the gate thing for us. And it's just funny. Do we remember the beginning of the season when Coach Lindy Ruff is being booed? Oh, feels like decades ago now, doesn't it, Scott?
Yes, it does. But are you? By the way, are you done? I didn't want to say anything unless you were.
No, I'm.
So
I'm gonna let you. Yeah.
The one thing about the Fire Lindy chant happened early on when the team lost its first 2 games of the season by a 5-2 score in both games, Philadelphia and Detroit. So it was a really rough start. But how often do you hear a fan base publicly chant an apology to the head coach? I have never seen anything like that in all the years I've been
in this area, in this locale, unheard of.
Yeah, and I don't say Lindy was like, listen, they had every right to, to complain and to basically just to gripe about this, and I respect that. But he's like, I appreciate it, but it's something that basically I a lot of even like Devils haters were looking at that and have the same attitude of just like that actually is something of credibility there. How often, like I said, do you see a fan base publicly apologize for the same person they were opting to try and fire? So there's cred there even with amongst the biggest haters. I do have my own thoughts, but I'm not going to roll into them until you're, like you said, if you're completely done, then we'll slip over to me.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do like a series pick in a couple minutes. Whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As we continue.
But
Yeah. Go on.
Before
I figure
you
we'll do this
before you go, Scott, because I obviously have the least input here. I just
There
want
you go.
I have two takeaways from what he said that I would like to, or what was just said, so that you can include it in what you have to say. Number one, the travel point. I mean, I don't know where these guys live, but I suspect each of them have equal number of guys on the wrong side of the river. So there really is no travel to begin with, is my guess. And then to your point about the Devils fans apologizing, usually the best you get is if you've had a longtime coach, you called for his head, you get his head, you go somewhere else, and then you root for him somewhere else when you're not playing them. So, yeah, that was actually one of the strangest, classiest things you've seen in a sports fan base do, not just in the New York Metro. I mean, I would say anywhere at any level. So kudos to, I think I gave kudos then, and I will give kudos now. Now, Scott, as the fake producer on your fake PTI, I'll give it back to you.
I've been a fan of the New Jersey Devils for 40 years. As you can see behind me, that is the opening night pennant from 1982 when Don Lever scored the game-winning goal and beats Pittsburgh. Have that been a fan this long? I have been through 10 years of unbridled misery. One could even argue it's been a little bit longer than that. So this has been a refreshing, recharging season for me on several fronts. I am well aware of what probably more than either one of you know exactly what this rivalry was and how long it's been and how messy it's been, even dating back to like 1985 when it was starting to pick up a little bit. I look at this series and I look at what's happening here and I look at what all the pundits are saying about how the Devils are inexperienced and they do not have training, in playoff format. And you said that and you were correct there. The one thing I'm going to say in this case here is the Devils are a quick adapt team. They have been playing a playoff style of hockey pretty much all season to a lesser degree than than playoff is, but greater than the regular season normally would be. Playing as the underdog, playing as that perennial team that nobody gives respect to. This has been a squad that has been playing behind that 8 ball all season to a team record 112 points and a team record in wins. I believe here, in all honesty, the biggest key to this entire series is going to be in the first 2 games. I think as this series wears on, it's going to be greater and greater advantage to the Devils on a couple of different fronts. One, because they're going to adapt to the playoff experience very quickly. They're going to adapt to what that feeling is going to be like as a young squad. I think they can be able to pick that up fairly quickly. The other side of this is they are a younger team. And they are also a better 5-on-5 team than the Rangers were. So in this case, if I look at the numbers as I pull them up, the Devils had the 3rd highest 5-on-5 goals of the entire, in all of the NHL this year. The Rangers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th. So in this case, there is a massive difference on 5-on-5. If this series should have to have games that go into overtime, that is going to be advantage Devils because of both the even strength side of it and also the lack of fatigue. When you have a player on there that scores 99 points as a 21-year-old, that is something that, while young, is going to give an advantage to a less fatigued team as this wears on, both in the games themselves and also in the series as well. I think if the Rangers are going to take this series, they are going to have to go up 2-0. You're going against a Devils team that is the 2nd best record on the road of any team in hockey this year. And Madison Square Garden is the pinnacle of on the road. And they are this season 3-0-1 against the Rangers. The only game that the Rangers actually beat the Devils was in overtime. So you look at all of those statistics, you look at all of those numbers, and the only X factor that keeps coming up in this is the lack of playoff experience. But if the Devils can adapt to that, if they can understand playoff experience and playoff hockey quickly, and I believe that they can and will take this series. Is it going to be long? Yeah. This series is going to go a minimum of 6 games here. I would not be surprised at all at 7. I will give it to the Devils on this. I'm going to say Devils in 6. I'm going to really go out on a limb on this one, put all my eggs into that basket there. I believe in this case, you have a faster team. You have a couple of questions when it comes to goaltending. There was some hate. There was some contempt there with the decision to have Mackenzie Blackwood as the backup. I don't entirely hate the decision, but you have Timo Meier, who is now ready and adjusted to hockey in New Jersey. Jack Hughes, his brother Luke might be getting some time. 2 games in, he's already got 2 points in his career. He might get some ice time on this. It is new to them. But if they can figure out a way to adapt to the playoff experience of it, there is no reason why this team cannot go all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. My take only.
My thing on that though is, I think I don't want to say that the Rangers are old, because are they old? Yes, they're experienced, but they're not old. And obviously,
They're
there's
older.
no such thing. Yeah, they're older, of course, but there's no such thing in hockey, especially Stanley Cup hockey, is slowing the game down. I mean, we hear that in basketball all the time, slowing it down, slowing the pace. You can't slow the pace down simply for the physics of gliding on ice. So it's just not possible in that sense. So I think if the Rangers can steal, split early because they're in Jersey first, split, take care of home ice, which is going to be extremely tough. Then
I don't really think there is a home ice in this one, actually.
No, I agree, but like if going Madison Square, if there was any kind of really kind of home ice advantage or comfort in being in a home arena, that would be arguably the one to be in. So I think if they can do that, they'll lose in Jersey for game 5 at that point, and maybe come back
5, 6,
and close it out in 6. I think that's a lot to ask for. And then to win on the road in the game 7 is also a lot to ask for. So I really think, and who knows if the regular season series, in terms of the record, has anything to do with the playoff series. So we'll see how it goes. I also agree that this is going to be 6 at the very minimum. I can't see this being sweep or 5 games in any sense for either team.
Some of the pundits were like, the Rangers are taking this at 4. I'm like, bullshit.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No. So I think this is going to be a test of, honestly, the Rangers' defense and their goaltending, because as good as Shesterkin's been this year, last year, we've seen recently with his matchups against the Devils, a little bit of kinks in the armor. So I think if he can really kind of tidy up the screws in that sense, the Rangers need to stay on top of and take advantage of their power plays, which they have been tremendous on all season. I think that will have to be one of their mainstays in terms of getting over the hump of this team. But I don't know if there is a first round East or West that is as balanced or as unpredictable as this series.
Yeah. You look at some of the other ones out there, basically, Carolina and the Islanders. I don't think there's going to be much in something like that. But yeah, this is going to be something. This might be the start of the renewed rivalry. You talked about the fact that the rivalry had diminished in the last few years. I think in this case, this might actually 100% renew it, for years to come. This could in some ways be hockey's equivalent of Yankees Red Sox from like 20 years ago, which didn't have a lot of distance between the two either, for that matter. But I did have a question for you on something. Do you mind if I pick your brain on something here?
Sure.
Okay. It's going to take me a minute. I want to get your thoughts here. The New York Rangers, a team rich with a storied histories in the annals of hockey, century of prestige, tradition, plays in a facility known worldwide, Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. One of the biggest payrolls in hockey. A team that has only made one trip to the Stanley Cup Finals in the last 20 years. The New York Yankees, a team rich with a storied history in the annals of hockey, a century plus of prestige and tradition, plays in a facility known worldwide, Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built, one of the highest payrolls in baseball, and a team that has only made one trip to the World Series in the past 20 years. Do you see how some of us might look at your fandom of the Rangers and say that you are basically rooting for hockey's equivalent of the Yankees?
No. I'm going to take this.
Please, go ahead.
I'm working on that too, man.
No, that's not.
The Yankees have what, 20? Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about 20? But I don't think of the Rangers as a storied franchise in hockey at all. Like as a somebody like from the outside in, I
Worth a shot.
They won it in 1940 and 1994. The Yankees got 20 plus. You have to pick 5 teams to get to the Yankees World Series total. I mean, the Yankees are a storied franchise. The history of baseball and the history of the Yankees are intrinsically tied. But the Rangers and hockey, it's like, oh yeah, the Rangers play hockey in New York. I don't hear about Gretzky or Hall, Lemieux. Those are the names that I think of when I think of hockey. Other than Messier coming,
video's going up in a couple of days.
Other than Messier coming over to the Rangers from Edmonton, do I really think of them as having one of the all-time? No, I can't. I don't see them as parallels at all. Sorry.
No,
it's okay.
It's yeah. I don't. It's not. That's a totally apples to oranges to bricks. That's so to bricks. I mean, you can. I don't see. It really is the New York thing, the kind of how do I say if it weren't for the fact that the Rangers are an original 6, maybe some of the lore is diminished. And yes, they've had some of these all-time players come through the locker room and won a chip, right? But it's not as much as I dog on the Yankees for their mere existence. I gotta defend the Yankees in that sense. It's not, or just
okay.
the question. That's no.
I was wondering
nor will I stand to be tied to any Yankee fandom. As the Ranger fandom and the Yankee fandom are so vastly on polar opposites of the spectrum. It's crazy. It's insulting. It really is. I got to be honest.
Well, I would say, other than that last bit, I would disagree. My recollection is that Devils and Mets fans were Devils, Mets, and Nets were with the Jets were tied together, and Giants, Yankees, Rangers, and Knicks were kind of tied together more often than the other than any other of the things. So on that one perspective, yeah. But here we are looking at the two of you guys, and you're both not even there, right? You got so it's no. I'm not feeling it at all. You can't elevate the Rangers like that. And so again, somebody who hates the Yankees, you just can't do it.
All right.
I'm not really sure that there is a Yankees equivalent in hockey. I mean, they're just, we could talk about the Lakers or the Celtics in basketball, Duke in college basketball, some of the other blue bloods. The Cowboys
possibly the Canadians, but they haven't been relevant for decades.
Right. They had their shot, like they were working towards that, but then it's just, and some of it might have to do with 8 teams going into the playoffs for a long time, and the playoffs being as random as they are, although they're not as random as baseball playoffs. But still, that might be part of what goes on with that.
Fair. Brandon, on a scale from 1 to 10, how pissed are you at me right now?
I would, to be honest, though, I would argue they're closer to, like, I would say, well, no, the Red Sox have, 3 in the last? It's so
the Red Sox have been decent
maybe even the Dodgers, so maybe a team like that, but the Yankees certainly not.
He's like them's fighting words.
Like the Cincinnati Reds. I think they're like the Cincinnati Reds.
No, you know who they are? They're the Oakland Athletics, right? They might be terrible right now, but like they've had some championships, like one every 20 years, one every 25 years, something like that. Yeah, historically always been relevant, right? Kind of one of the main franchises of the respective sports. I think that's a closer comp.
What about if you're going to stay in New York and stay in MSG and just go with the Knicks?
Sure.
There's a team that I would say the history and the value of the Knicks to the NBA far outweighs their championship pedigree. And maybe that's what you're saying with the Rangers.
Like he does the Yankees. For the record, I do want to say I did actually feel kind of bad bringing that up. Because actually this went on a much more friendly note than I was expecting it to, and I put the time in. I'm like, damn it, what do I do here? But yeah, sorry, yeah. I just figured, like I said, it's an interesting dichotomy on that. But yeah, a little disappointed that the contempt leading into this wasn't there. Oh well.
Although, I mean, the seasons don't line up exactly. But if you want to go into last year and then prospectively in this upcoming season, I mean, every New York team is in the playoffs. God damn.
Almost.
I mean,
well,
we got
not
five
everyone.
at the moment between the three hockey to both basketball teams. Both Yankees and the Mets made it last year. The Giants made it last year. The Jets make it next year. But, that's what I'm saying. Next year.
Well,
all of us. Look at us. What are we? The
Yeah.
Paul Rudd meme with the hot ones, the hot sauce. Look at us. All of us. Or the Spider-Man pointing meme. All of us. All us New York teams.
that actually
Jersey
works.
teams.
That actually, yeah, all three hockey teams should be all three Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't know why I called him Spider-Man. I guess he's from Bayside. But yeah,
I mean, one team actually has Spider-Man colors. Yours doesn't.
That is-
so, I mean,
that
we
is
work
true,
out
yeah.
better for that. So,
yeah, man. So, but
that's my
all right.
trash
So fair
talking
enough.
was the Spider-Man meme.
Listen, the internet exploded when Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire recreated the meme. The internet exploded. So the last
it
Marvel
should
film
have.
to really crush it at the box office.
Which should have, yeah.
Oh yeah. So, all right. So like I said, this is going to be hell on ice. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of content. Possibly a little bit of background banter between us on the Facebook group itself. But irrespective, it might go down in history as one of the absolute all-time classic, greatest hockey playoffs of all time. It really, really might. So, gentlemen, any other final thoughts on that?
Can't wait for the puck drop.
Damn straight. Puck, yeah. All right. So, switch over this way. What do you say? This is more your department, I'll admit, than my own. Obi, we're going to be talking a little bit. Yeah.
Ranger, hockey, I would still, confess and completely give to you as your baby on the show.
Well, I did do a commercial or two for the shit so I did have that back in the day. So, but anyway, yeah.
Brandon, Hollywood up and coming actor over here.
Hardly. So now I'm getting too old for it. The pain's too great. Brandon, the other team that you're sporting tonight, a team recognized by a somewhat forgotten but very enjoyable Will Smith rap song about the city of Miami. How's your team doing, pal?
Well, you take it one game at a time, and so far they have completed business. I said last week that I thought barring upsets and major injuries, the winner of that 7-8 matchup to be the 7th seed would potentially have the hardest path to winning a championship. Let's say they had gotten all the way that far. And so the Heat, by losing that game, have avoided that gauntlet that should come. And I don't know if they have an easier path. They just have it's more of a, I guess, easily navigatable path, if you want to say, because, I mean, now that we've seen some chips fall and both teams have been diminished by injury, some more than others. We'll see Tyler Hero diving for a play with his wrist, breaks his wrist, 2 wrist injuries yesterday. We'll get to the other wrist injury in a little bit, but with Tyler Hero, so he's expected to be out essentially the rest of the playoffs, depending on how far the Heat were to make it. But Giannis on the Bucks side of that seems to be okay. They don't seem to be indicating that he's going to be in doubt for game 2 or even in question. And with a little bit of rest, they don't have to travel because they'll be in Milwaukee for game 2. I think he should be pretty okay. I still think this is going to be a really tough battle. Obviously, being one game ahead is always fantastic, but we've seen 1-0 leads blow in the playoffs a bunch of times. The thing with the Heat in this constructed roster is that more than any other team in the playoffs, They have the most undrafted guys. So it's I don't want to say it's Jimmy Butler or bust, especially now with Tyler Hero being out. But a lot of guys are going to have to really elevate their gameplay to be able to kind of help Jimmy overcome the Bucks, and then we see what happens after that. Max Strus is raining threes all of a sudden, like he's Storm from X-Men controlling weather, and you got a lot of defensive help between Vincent and rebounding with Kevin Love, who's creating a lot of transitional offense, being that he is so great at that outlet pass, right? Getting that rebound, kind of that overhead soccer pass down the court. We saw it with LeBron a million times. We even saw it back in Minnesota, even though he was doing it to nobody. He was doing it. And I think that really will help this Heat team get out some open threes in transition. But one thing I'm kind of, even in a win, disappointed on and disappointed with, especially going through the play-in tournament or April foolishness, as I would like to trademark it at this point, is Bam Adebayo. I mean, I like Bam. Really, he is a great player. He has skills that a lot of bigs don't have, but he doesn't have that. I don't want to say he doesn't have that dog, but like there are a lot of times where he is very passive, and he is kind of in the shadows. We all get that Jimmy Butler is the first offensive option on that team. He's the face of this team, but Bam, you got to be second. There is no reason why Bam shouldn't be what we want, and we see Anthony Davis when he's at the top of Anthony Davis. Is he as big as Anthony Davis? No, but he is Anthony Davis archetype player. So we should see that, and there are a lot of times where we don't, or I don't. It's frustrating, and we're going to need him, especially, and I said it like 18 times now, especially with Tyler Hero being out. He has to be that guy. It's got to be Jimmy and Bam, and then, whoever kind of has the hot hand as the third option, and you go it that way. The defense has got to be there, the rebounding there. You got to have the block shots. There's no reason why you can't block shots like Jaren Jackson Jr. in Memphis. There really isn't. He is one of the most athletic bigs we have in the league, and I want to see more from Bam. But this is still going to be a tough first round matchup against Milwaukee, regardless of whether Giannis is 100%, 90%, 85%. It's going to be as tough as ever. So, Obi, you want to go on your Sixers?
Well, I will touch your team and segue to my Sixers. I think that if Giannis is out and Hero are both out the entire series, I think that favors the Heat, because you're talking about the MVP versus the sixth man of the year. But I think if you're playing a healthy team, any of the other teams in the playoffs, presuming the other team is healthy, I think that Hero loss is going to be rough, because you mentioned it. I mean, Jimmy's scorer number one. Hero might be the sixth man, but he's kind of scorer number two. So that was, I think, a devastating injury. And in some ways, because there's no timeline on him coming back, of the big three injuries we saw, maybe actually the worst. Because if the other team survive a few games, they may get their guy back. Now, the Sixers, look, the Nets, because of the original big three they had, were high up in the standings when it fell apart. And they did not just fall down and tumble, but they didn't fall enough. And the Sixers are the beneficiaries of that. Joel played 33 minutes, put up 26 points. And, anytime Joel gets to rest at least 10, you're excited. Harris was the number 3 scorer on the team over Maxey. Anytime Harris has a game where he does better than Maxey, that's a win for the Sixers, because Maxey really has moved into that number 3 spot. I want to pretend that the Nets are a real NBA playoff basketball team, and instead I feel like they got lucky, because not lucky might not be the right word. They were good enough not to completely fall apart and fall out of the playoffs, and the Sixers are lucky enough to face them. So look, if we can, as a Sixer fan, if we can win the games with Embiid playing 33 minutes, that's so big for the next round. Especially if you end up playing the Celtics, which, I agree with what you said last week. It was better, I think, for the Heat to lose that. And you kind of get that. If we can beat Milwaukee, we get a rest, right? And that's what the Heat's looking at now. If we can get by them because he's hurt, playing the Knicks or the Cavs, that's kind of a series that we look at as a purely even series. We can do this. And it looks like the Sixers might be getting that with the Nets, and I'm relieved. So we'll knock wood, hope that continues. There's not much to say because the Nets just aren't a team that's putting things up. So I got that with the Sixers, but I think the bigger news is what went down in the West. I think the East, we had the major injury and we saw the Heat take advantage of it. But what the Lakers did in the last 3 minutes of that ball game, to me, was one of the most felt like championship victories I've seen in a long time. It's like, we're about to win. Granted, it might be because Ja's hand was bent backwards and his middle finger was touching the back of his wrist, but still, like they just said 3 minutes, no points. Sorry, we're just going to block shots and turn them into easy layups. And that was the most noteworthy thing I think I really saw this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that series is very interesting, obviously, being that it's the Lakers and LeBron and the whole Ja Morant thing and just the Lakers, Grizzlies. I don't want to say rivalry, but kind of upsparked kind of personal fight that they've got. Yeah, beef that they've got with each other, we'll say. But this injury to Ja, and I texted you guys in the group chat with Anthony Davis with the arm. Oh my God. The minute I saw that, I was like, I was Whitesnake. Here we go again. I was David Coverdale. Here we go again.
I think we all were.
Yeah, but he seemed to be all right. But it's Ja Morant wrist. And we saw him after the game in the locker room. He's got his hood up and it's just kind of out of it. I mean, we don't really see that from him in that sense. So that, I think, is going to be very devastating. Look, we obviously the Lakers up 1-0 on the road, which is great because even if you split, you got the next two games at home, or if you can win both on the road, go up 2-0, you now can go home for 2. And if there's any team that could use rest after a first round matchup, it's this team in the Lakers. So this is a very pivotal point in their kind of, we'll say, playoff run. Very early after one game, they have to keep their foot on the pedal. They cannot become complacent. They have to, even if Ja is not out there, they have to go out there pretending like he is. And really put the pressure on a Desmond Bain or a Dylan Brooks to be that now number one option. And I don't think that they are capable of being that, especially when you're playing the same team for 4, 5, 6, 7 games. And during the season, when you play one game and you can kind of get away with that. But when you're, in a 4 to 7 game playoff series, you can't, against a experienced veteran Lakers team, you cannot get away with that. So I really think if the Lakers can, like I said, keep the foot on the pedal, can they sweep the Grizzlies if Ja's really going to be out of the lineup or just even 60% of what he normally is? So I think the Lakers are in a very unique situation now. But I do have to say that according to how we determine who the greatest ever, I mean, LeBron's got to lose this series.
He can't.
The only way. Hey, that's the only way.
He can't make it to the finals.
No, you can't. No, you can't lose into the finals. You have to lose to a Ja Morant-less or Ja Morant handicap team. That's going to be the only.
Goat conversation aside, I think you made a great point about this team. They can get the sweep and get the rest, and I think it combines with what I said. Are they going to be able to keep the foot down? And that's what we saw in the last 3 minutes of that game. That game got out of hand, and the Lakers did not care. They still played defense. They still blocked shots. They still passed the ball up for the breakaway. I mean, it was an embarrassing last 3 minutes, but the Lakers were just like, they put the boot on the throat. Jaws out. We're not letting you score. We're not letting you play. Defense. I mean, the guys blocking shots weren't even AD. He was getting the ball. So it was just, I agree 100%. And this is the team, like, so I know you guys had a lot of conversation about experience and playoffs and hockey. And I don't know the value of that, but I do know it matters in basketball. It's
not as much in basketball.
Okay, because in basketball it does show, because you've had those bad Cleveland teams, like you had LeBron with the Cleveland, they would just turn it on in the playoffs. You had him at Miami, they would just turn it on in the playoffs. So can this Laker team do it? Probably. I do wonder when they get to a Denver or the winner of Golden State Sacramento and they start to face teams that have some depth and some bench. But against this Ja Morant list, if it's less or even without the two big men team, I really like the Lakers' chances a lot. And I like them to be quicker and get that rest. Unlike, I think Golden State, on the other hand, who lost, feels okay. I mean, Curry got a 3 off at the end of the game to tie it. I think they would have, could have they gotten that to overtime. Does the Fox keep scoring, or just the experience matter there? And I think that's the series where we're really going to get a good look at experience versus youth.
Yeah, I think, and we had a picture of Rui Hachimura, the last Lakers point between Rui, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell, who was 1 point away. He had 19. The Lakers had 5 guys that scored, well, let's just say 19 or more. So the balanced scoring was there. It's got to keep up if they want to sweep, or even just because, even if you want to AI, give them one game, gentlemen sweep them. But I think the Lakers really are in a unique position. And now, on their other side, who they would potentially meet up with, either the Warriors or the Kings, I think that's a very interesting matchup as well, because they are kind of the polar opposites. I mean, there is no other playoff experienced team than the Warriors, and there is no less playoff experienced team than the Kings. So it's really kind of fitting that, especially fresh off a title, that matchup happens. And I think the Kings are relishing in the moment. Yes, they will have to go on the road eventually, but if you can take care of business at home, I mean, you got home court advantage. I mean, you win in 7 at that point. And we all know what the Warriors have been on the road this year, and that's been the worst team in basketball. So again, playoffs is different. We know it's Steph, Clay, Draymond, Steve Kerr, Iggy, what they do in the playoffs, what they've done in the playoffs. But I think the Kings are going into this series, went into the first game with we don't care. It doesn't matter. It's the playoffs. We might have the most favorable home court advantage, because there is no more hungrier fan base. There won't be as an electric atmosphere, even with the Knicks. In Madison Square Garden, like we gave with the Rangers before, the Kings in that light the beam. I think that's powerful stuff, and I think the Kings are going to just tunnel vision, just push the Golden State Warriors and really push them in pace. I think the youth, they're going to try and get out in transition. They're going to keep Dre, Clay, and Steph moving constantly, tire them out. But I think that the only way I pick the Kings in this series, and I'll say in 7, just because of the experience thing. But with the Warriors, we saw Wiggins return. He looked pretty good. Well, it wasn't fantastic. Wasn't what we saw last year in their playoff run. But they're going to need him to, I don't want to say be the number one option, but there might be a game or two in this series where he will have to be. Not maybe so in point total, but in point of what he's asked to do offensively. We know Steph and Clay are going to shoot the lights out with three, whether it's not a great percentage or not, they're going to shoot. But Wiggins, whether it be with some outside shooting, getting to the basket, he's going to have to be that X factor if the Warriors want to advance past the newly playoff, excitement and thrill team that is the Sacramento Kings. But yeah, I don't know. Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Whew.
So yeah. I think you're right about Wiggins. Wiggins is going to have to win them a game. So let's assume that's the road game, and then Clay and Curry alone can win them the 3 at home. Just do it that way, because I think you're right about Wiggins needing to do it. But the good news is Wiggins theoretically should be rested. Maybe not emotionally, but physically. And sometimes when you're not emotionally rested, a little physical exertion works the body well. We'll see if that happens. But I do think it's important to note that this incarnation of the Golden State Warriors, essentially the Steve Kerr coached Warriors, have never gone down in a series 0-2. So we will see if that continues. A lot of, there's not a lot to fully glean from game 1 of the series. Look, I think you really have a better sense after game 2, right? Because after game 2, either the home team has stood its ground, the home team has split, or the road team looks dominant. And that's really when you can get a sense what those 2 games are. Because even in the case of, in this case, if you can get the split and you're Golden State, that first game, missing the 3 by Wiggins, missing the 3 by Curry, doesn't matter anymore. You've got the split. On the other hand, you lose. Well, now it's really got to be set into that team's mind. How the heck do we win on the road? And I know they're the most experienced team, and I know they got the coach, but you really don't want that starting to wear down on you and wear down on you and wear down on you. Because that can matter, especially when, Wiggins is back, but it's not helping, right? Well, of course it's not helping. He's just came back. He played, 28 minutes. He's not full bore on. So there's a lot that goes on in that series. But coaching-wise, it's up to Kerr to really find a way to win this game now. Get this monkey off their back early and often if they can. They're actually probably better off, winning this game and then, win their 2 at home and then win the last one on the road as opposed to wait until they get back home just to lift the monkey, shake it out, and get it clear. But, it's easier said than done.
I think they have to focus on getting Wiggins into a rhythm. We know that Clay and Steph and Draymond, just based on their style of play, are very adaptable. Obviously, they've played with Wiggins, won with Wiggins. But in terms of getting him into a rhythm, I think is going to be so important. If he can get, whether it be in this next game, game 2 in Sacramento, or going home to a game 3 in San Francisco, in front of their home crowd, having his first basket fall, having his second basket fall is going to be so crucial in keeping him engaged and kind of shutting the noise out. Because I still think, even after what he did last year, if he is kind of not in rhythm and out of sorts, especially fresh off coming what he went through, and I'm not saying he's going to melt down, but we're not going to see the Wiggins that the Warriors are going to need to go on another deep playoff run and hopefully maybe go back to back. Well, not hopefully. I don't hope they go back to back, but for them, hopefully they go back to back. So
I did not think you meant yourself personally with your Miami Heat hat on. That was not taken that way. So I will say this though: all these games we've talked about, the biggest surprise to me wasn't even the Heat winning, because I saw Antetokounmpo go down. That gave the Heat the opening they needed. And the one thing about the Heat is if you open it up, I have no doubt that they're going to slam that door. They're going to take advantage of it. That is the culture. That is Heat culture. Is probably what you love about the Heat. You open the door, they're stomping through.
Plus, they were in control the whole game regardless, before injuries.
Yeah. But the Clippers beating Phoenix, I have to say that surprised me. And then I heard this stat: 0-7 Kevin Durant's last 7 playoff games. That was shocking. So maybe he's not just the greatest basketball player living right now, because it's 0-7 now, or maybe it's 0-8 now. But I was shocked. I expected Phoenix at home to take both games, and I really expected if it went long, it to be the home team winning type situation.
It's a good time to be a fan of
rare
New
time
York
for
City.
me. I gotta relish it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a fan in the New Jersey, New York metro area. All right, gents. Thanks as always. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's going to be for a wild ride on several fronts, but that's good as always. Next up for Tales from the Film Set, we will be talking about Yamcha finally getting a win in Dragon Ball, and the internet is losing its mind. So anyway, that's all. Take care. Stay awesome.